Number of things going on in the world, and we'll be talking about those and seeing what folks have got to say about what's taking place in the world and around the world. But definitely, it has been confirmed that the Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar was killed in Gaza, but Hamas says it cannot be eliminated after Yahya Sinwar's killing. So they're definitely saying that they are still going to continue fighting, and Israelis and Palestinians are bracing what follows Sinwar's killing in Gaza. So it looks like that war will be continuing for a while and all along those lines. So definitely that is something that folks will be paying attention to in the world front and all along those lines. But North Korean troops in Russia are ready for combat in Ukraine war, according to South Korea. South Korea's spy agency says North Korea is sending troops to Russia. And I think that even Sasha had talked about that in one of his updates on the Ukraine Russia China show. I believe that was on Tuesday that he talked about that. And King Charles III visit rekindles Australia's debate on ending ties to the monarchy. So uh, King and Queen are greeted by a light show on their Australian tour. And for Charles' first visit as king, it looks like some of the folks are saying Australians are royally unimpressed. So definitely they're looking at some uh, notion as to what their ties with that particular monarchy will be. And definitely there's some talk about how the India Canada fallout could affect trade and immigration. So, Canada opposition leader says Justin Trudeau is using Niar's murder to divert attention from other controversies. And the B 2 stealth bomber used to hit the Houthis was built to strike the toughest targets. So, definitely it hit a underground weapons depot in an apparent Iran. So definitely the U.S. airstrike in the Middle East was meant to remind Iran that nothing is out of reach. So that is something else going on in the world as well. So like I said, the conflict seems to be expanding there in the Middle East. So we'll see what folks have to say about that. And if you think that Trump's migration policies are extreme, apparently you can look at the EU's because von der Leyen is promising to increase EU's deportation. So EU is considering offshore centers for deportees as it hardens on migration. So definitely looks like some other places are being even tougher on their migrants and all along those lines. And Biden is urging the West to sustain Ukraine support as the U.S. elections are looming in the future and all along those lines. So definitely end of an era. Biden is heading toward or has been in Berlin and Germany for a farewell trip in that area. So he arrived in Berlin and urged the allies to continue their support for Ukraine. So that's something that's going on in the world front and along the world front. Let's see what's happening in the U.S. front. So definitely a murder trial begins in a small Indiana town in the killing of two teenage girls. So the Delphi murder trial is underway with opening statements on Friday morning in the state versus Allen. So definitely it looks like this is the trial of Richard Allen, who is accused of killing two Delphi, Indiana girls. So that trial is going on. And like I told y'all yesterday, early voting has begun here in North Carolina. I actually went to an event there and everything. So it looks like even in parts of the area that impacted by the hurricane, that folks are still going out to voting and all of those lines. So it looks like North Carolina residents defied the hurricane aftermath on the first day of early voting. So thousands of Buncombe County residents flocked to the poll as early voting began. So definitely it looks like there was some serious voting going on in that part of the world as well. So definitely be interesting to see what happens in that case. And a Texas Supreme Court has halted the execution in the shaken baby case. So justice has finally been served. That's what some of the supporters of Robert Robertson are saying. So Texas execution tied to the shaken baby syndrome death is in limbo amid legal fights. So we'll see how this all plays out as well. And Trump insults Harris at the Al Smith dinner while she barnstorms Wisconsin and mocks his father of IVF claims. So definitely it looks like Jim Gaffigan roasts an awkward Al Smith dinner featuring Trump and Letitia James. So definitely it looks like both of those were there. So that ought to have been interesting and all in that space. But we'll see what folks did or if they saw this or what their thoughts were around this as well. And it looks like folks are asking what winter will be like in Massachusetts. So it looks like there are Chicago area winter weather projections released by NOAA. So it looks like the return of a weak El Nino could mean certain things for the coming winter. So it looks like there might be parts of the U.S. that could get hit by some severe weather, but we'll see how this all plays out as well. And how a throuple relationship ended in a Florida murder mystery. That's going to be covered on 48 hours later on. So definitely some folks will be paying attention to that as they'll try to figure out who killed Eileen Zedine in room 15. So definitely looks like it was a interesting relationship that was going on with all the parties involved, and we'll see what goes on in that way. And last but not least, before I bring folks in and everything, Republican Sam Brown swings away in Nevada Senate debate amid polling deficit. So Brown and Rosen spar over immigration in Nevada, and the Nevada Senate hopefuls tackle trans athletes, immigration, and apparently they also talked about UFOs in their only debate. And speaking of interesting things, apparently Mark Robinson has called for the governor of North Carolina to step down after the governor of North Carolina calls for him to step down. So who knows? Maybe both of them will wind up stepping down, even though I doubt that very seriously as well. But gonna bring other folks in and see what they've got to say about some of these news stories and all along those lines. So I've got Jim Eads coming at me from California, and I've also got Rick Rosner coming in from California, and of course we've got Sasha Starr, and we've got one of the founders of the network, Kim Calhoun, as well. So any take on this? It looks like the campaign is going well, and folks are having debates in certain states and everything. And like I said, they even brought up UFOs in one of the debates in that area. And all along those lines, I think that was in Nevada, which doesn't surprise me. And I think that is a UFO hub in terms of investigating.
I would take a UFO over our two candidates any day of the year.
Yesterday, we spent a lot of time arguing about the predictions. Shaq from Australia said that the poly market, the betting market, has Trump as a pretty strong favorite. And I said the poly market's subject to manipulation. If rich guys want to spend enough money putting down bets on Trump, they can change the probability of Trump winning in that market. And also, they are paying people to tweet about the poly market, the people who run poly market. And then the polls have it being a toss-up right now, with Harris at 53%. But those are subject to manipulation too. So I looked at the real election returns. About 10% of Americans have already voted, and data is available on about 7% of Americans, not who they voted for. You can't count the votes until election day by law, but some states keep track of gender, and some states keep track of which party you're registered with. So the biggest news that I found is Florida, where 1 million people have already voted. And in 2020, in early voting, Democrats outvoted Republicans by 1.3%. This time so far, Democrats are outvoting Republicans by 6%. That's a 4.7% bump. And the margin of victory of the of Trump over Biden in Florida in 2020 was only 3.36%. So does that mean that Florida's in play? Maybe, I don't know, but it does show that Shaq, I don't think, is correct that the election's over and Trump's won. I think if you look at various states, like New Jersey, Democrats outvoted Republicans in early voting by 17% in 2020. This year, 42.5%. So are people in Florida pissed about like Republican leadership that's like engaged in culture wars instead of like fixing the insurance market where it costs $11,000 a year on average to insure your home. I don't know.
It could be interesting to see, Rick, but that's one of the questions I was going to ask Kim, because like I said, if there are thousands voting in Buncombe County, as I remember, Buncombe County is probably heavy Trump territory, and that was one of the areas that was hit by the storm. So some people are surprised at the amount of folks that are coming out to vote in that area and everything. But if I remember correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that is definitely kind of like mountain territory, and definitely would be probably heavily Trump favorite, I would imagine. It's been a minute, if ever, that I've been up there and everything. But
what's the name of that county? Tell me, because I can look it up by county.
Buncombe.
What, is that Florida? Because
no, it's North Carolina.
It's North Carolina.
Oh, North Carolina does not is one of the states that is not generous with. But let me see what voting is. Let's see if it's.
Yeah, there was a lot. While you're looking that up, Rick, what's your take on that, Kim? Because like I said, isn't that up there in the area that historically has been heavily Republican?
Yeah, I mean, it just, you have these towns, they are Trump, not even Republican. It's all, Trump signs everywhere. I can't remember what Buncombe is if I drive through there, if I see Trump signs, but many of the towns I go through, it looks like a Trump town. It looks like they even changed the name to Trump. Even one of the church has such a big banner on the church. I don't even know the name of the church. It just says Trump. So, but I think that, I feel like North Carolina can be heavily Trump. I know Virginia is. When I drive into Virginia, it is all Trump as you drive through every town. And it could be that, the Republicans just have more money to put up more signs. But, it's interesting to me, that the way, everybody's different on the polls of what they predict. I had what I felt like was 2 firm confirmations the other day that Trump pretty much has it in the bag. I feel like our electoral college is more crooked than the people's votes. But go ahead, Rick.
So I looked up Buncombe about in all of North Carolina they have statistics on vote by mail ballots that have been received. And so about 400,000 have been requested and about 80,000 have been turned back in. So about 20% of mail-in ballots are already returned across the state. For Buncombe County, it's about 11.5%, 12%. So they're running a little bit less than the state average, but it's pretty early. I don't know that that's indicative, and and all they have to do is get to a mailbox or drop it off at the polling place.
I got a question, and I'm glad Jacoby joined, because now he can answer this question as well as maybe other people want to jump in as well. I thought I was watching the guy from meaning North Carolina's World Overcomers, but it was actually the guy from the same church name and everything, but he was from Florida and everything, and he was basically making the argument, and I'm afraid that it could be an argument that could be persuasive to some, that he was rolling out a lot of those cultural war issues and everything. So he was a conservative black minister and everything. So he's rolling out the things around, trans rights and gay rights. And basically he was telling his congregation and getting a lot of hoopla. And it was a lot of one of those mega churches that he quote unquote didn't care who they voted for, but for them to be sure to vote for quote unquote God's side. So he was basically pointing out a lot of the things that the Democrats in his mind were doing wrong and everything along those lines. And like I said, it was the pastor, and I forgot his name, from World Overcomers down there in Florida. And like I said, as I was watching this video, a lot of the congregation was, hooping and hollering them and looking like they were supporting him. So I was just wondering, is the evangelical vote, both in the black and the white community, going to be a major player? Because he definitely was whipping up his crowd and everything, and basically looking at ways to argue that the other side, and this was when Biden was still in play before Kamala came in and everything, that Trump might be more morally correct and everything, which I found kind of interesting and everything. But I would just wanted your take on this from the evangelical side.
I mean, the evangelicals have always gone Republican, and so it's not going to change this election. It's still going to be the same thing. The irony I always find, especially now, remember when it was, hey, it's the economy that's the number one issue. We're going to run on the economy. Well, Trump has yet to run on the economy. He's run, oh, we should hate identity politics and the culture wars. We should never do those. Well, that's the whole platform right now, because they're running on hatred of others, because you have the great replacement theory that they keep running on, that these immigrants are stealing your jobs, taking all this, attacking your family. That's a culture warfare thing. They're doing trans rights. That's the big push that they're doing. That's culture warfare. They haven't put out a plan for what's going on for the future. They have just complained how bad the world is, and how bad the U.S. is, and how horrible a place it is, and only Trump can fix it. I mean, that's authoritarian from the start. I mean, that's the way Putin runs, is I'm the great savior. That's the way any dictator or authoritarian runs, is I'm the great savior and I'm the only one that can save you from this. So I still don't understand why this idolatry is there, and I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any take on this?
Well, what I noticed about the campaign mostly is that the Republicans, or the Trump supporters, not so much Republicans, I'm started separating the two, but they tend to spread fear. They use the fear tactic, even if it's lies. They just get out there and they spread fear. They point blame. There's absolutely no solutions given other than I'm your savior. And they convince their followers to follow them into the desert, and that they're thirsty to the point that they'll drink the sand. And this is the Trump followers. They don't care about anything else. Trump can falsify data and be so irresponsible that he causes damages and problems with hurricane relief actions, so that we can get things done. And nobody cares. They think, oh, well, that's, on the people for believing him. They shouldn't have believed everything they were told. And I'm like, that's a leader. And, just the perpetual lies. They don't like to be fact checked. To me, that's like looking at a child who says, why are you checking on me? Well, immediately your parent radar is going to go up and go, I'm going to check on you more. I kind of want to shift gears. I know we were talking about the politics, and other people want to chime in, but I want to talk a little bit about Robert Roberson, who his execution has been halted for 30 days. And he was, bipartisan, 100% people fighting for him. They halted the execution at the very last minute. The reason why the appeals courts and the Supreme Court wouldn't stay his execution for further review was because of some of the laws as they exist today would not allow them to do that. So it had to go back to the governor at the last hour. And so unfortunately, everybody's sitting on pins and needles up until 11 p.m. when it was halted, which tells me our laws need drastic overhaul and change, that it was a total waste of our resources. I have known a man who was on death row and shaved at least 2 times, ready to execute him. And they found out, many years later that he didn't do the crime, that all the witnesses were wrong because there was someone else just like him, looked just like him, committing the crime. So there's proof and evidence that they did not appropriately use the evidence. And that's what both sides, including the prosecutor, have been fighting. So just, watch how we do things and push for better law. That's my pitch for
This
today.
was a shaken baby syndrome case that his
Yes.
daughter died mysteriously. She was, I don't know, less than 2 years old, and people examined that she had some kind
Shaken
of,
baby.
and I got accused of shaking my baby in front of our congregation at our temple. Our kid was, I don't know, like 3 months old, and you go up in front of the temple for a blessing or something. And I was holding her, and she was getting fussy, and I knew that if you rocked her, she would calm down. She liked the rocking, so I started rocking her, pretty fast, because and my uncle, who was a doctor, from the audience said that you're shaking the baby, which I was that was a big deal like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Everything was shaking baby. And no, I wasn't. I was rocking the baby. And, he was completely out of line, but he was the doctor. And,
Speaking of out of line, and then
Well,
I'm going to get back to some of
real
the
quick, Mark.
story.
Mark,
Go
I
ahead.
just want to real quick, just to go back to the death penalty situation where it got stayed. This is another example of why the death penalty should not be there. It's legalized. It's legalized murder. And the most upsetting thing about it getting stayed, remember, just about a month ago, we had a gentleman who was put to death that everybody said that he should not be put to death. He was a black gentleman. This gentleman's not. So what does that tell you about the country again, or what message does that put out to the country? That this gentleman who was black, everybody said, even from the prosecutors and so on and so forth, said that they recanted their statements. Even everybody said that he should not be put to death. He was a black gentleman, got put to death. But this gentleman here, there was a stay. So, and yes, the different situations, all this other stuff. But just take a look at the optics and think about what that says.
And I think space should be more given when you've got so many people fighting for you too. And and I agree with Jatovi. I have seen an extreme prejudice in the system, but it also depends on what state you're in, where that prejudice comes from in the law enforcement sector. But we witnessed it here in North Carolina in a trial. And I just felt like that prejudice was a big play.
Speaking of prejudice and everything along those lines, and I meant to mention it earlier because it was 2 days ago and everything, but 29 years ago, there was a major event. A lot of people don't like the leader and everything that created this event. Some don't like him even to this day and everything because he's part of the Muslim community and everything. But a lot of people are wondering, and it kind of plays what you just asked Jatovi about the penal system and everything, but it was literally October 16th, 1995, so almost 29 years ago, that the Million Man March was held, and they said it was the largest gathering of African-American men ever in Washington, D.C., and of course it was followed up by a couple of other marches and everything. I think the Million Woman March and the Million Family March and a couple of other ones. But does anybody feel that we have seen enough gains in terms of not just race relations, but even as what y'all are talking about, penal reform? I actually think the penal system needs to be completely reformed, and that
I do too.
Let's go back to the 2 death penalty cases where I think both were Texas, where the black guy, where all the witnesses had recanted. It turns out they were paid to testify against the guy with either prosecution deals, and the white guy gets off, and also the governor pardoned a dude who shot a protester, who said online, I'm going to go find me a protester to shoot. He goes and he drives into a protesting crowd, murders a guy, is found guilty, and the governor pardons the guy. And so one more deal about the death penalty is people might argue that it's just cheaper to kill a bad guy than keep him in jail for the rest of his life. That's not true. All the legal stuff involved with doing the death penalty means you're spending more money on the guy than if you just locked him up forever.
Yeah, Jim, you haven't spoken anything. So, any thoughts around some of these issues that we talked about, including the anniversary of the Million Man March and the death penalty, and some of the other things? I see freedom behind you, so I know that that's one of your things that you love to talk about, and all along those lines. So, any thoughts around some of these gains or lack of gains, and even the race, because that's where we started off this conversation.
Well, yeah, first off, I think Harris is going to win Virginia handily, and the thing that the outcome of the election is going to be based on swing states, and you know, uh, Kamala Harris has done very well in their campaigning in some of the swing states that Clinton ignored, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Michigan. These are still very close, and who knows what's going to happen. But I think she's going to win all of those states, and the deciding state will become Pennsylvania. And I think Pennsylvania is hers to get. And I think she's really pulling out all the stops there. So I think that that's really going to be one of the things that is going to change our country, because we're not talking about the cognitive decline of Trump, which is evident. They're canceling interviews, they're hiding him, and basically because when he gets in front of the cameras, he embarrasses himself, he embarrasses his allies, and this has been consistent now for quite some time, and it gets worse the more times they let him talk. And so I've been hoping that they let him talk more, but they're making him talk less. And so will this lock up the election if people don't see the cognitive decline? I don't know. But according to, one of the things that's race oriented is, are we willing as a country to elect a black female? And, we've obviously elected Obama, but black men aren't necessarily as warming up to Kamala as they did to Obama. I think the election is going to be based on teetering on the thin ice of how many women show up. I know a lot of black women will show up. How many suburban women will show up and vote? I think that's going to tip the election. And I don't have, sorry, Shaq, I don't have any faith in the betting community. Every Sunday I look at the spreads and on the games and football games, and their track record is not that great. And all the talking heads on TV telling me to buy the latest greatest stock, I just don't put any stock in that. It's easily manipulated, and the idea that that's a trend that we should pay attention to, I don't. But the race is tightening. It's natural. It's often seen along this time of year. But I do think that the more exposure we have to Trump, the more people are going to, because I know you can fool some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And they're going to catch on. This guy's a fraud. Trump University, Trump Organization, fraud. Everything that he touches, he's got 34 felony convictions. And if this country elects a man who's in decline, he's not who he was in 2016. I give you a pass in 2016, but now, my goodness, if you feel uncomfortable voting for a black woman, come on. Voting for a fraud con man, come on. What's the choice here? It's obvious. But the racial, things that are affecting our legal system, these are such hard issues to tackle, but they must be faced. They must be tackled, because you cannot ignore the fact that it's still true. I just looked at a study, Stanford and Princeton, and there were covenants in housing prices in California, in the county next to mine, that had covenants that prevented Africans and Asians from buying homes there. So there were white communities by the covenants. And this was true. It was outlawed in 1948, but it was still part of the covenants in the houses. It's passed from deed to deed. And so there's still these types of things that are active. They're legal. But they're not binding if challenged. But people don't read the fine print often. So we as a country still have a long way to go. And I hope it would send such a powerful, strong message to the rest of the world if we had a black female leading this country.
Hey, this is for everybody because Shaquille brought it up before and everything on past shows and everything along those lines. But what do you say to those people that are from other parts of the world and supporters of Trump when they point out, and I can't deny it, that it has happened a couple of times that Kamala Harris has made gaffes. She definitely made one recently with the Wisconsin voters when she said that she stood up to veterans, and also the whole notion that she is flip-flopping on issues, whether that's fracking or whether that's immigration or a number of other things. That is the criticism that people are throwing towards her during the latter days of, or the latter part of this campaign. So what is the answer to that?
So
she had 3 rallies in Wisconsin yesterday. Does the rallying, like working her ass off to win a state, does that overcome stuff like this? I'm fine with her changing her mind about fracking. It's like maybe she learned more. I mean, there's places where it makes sense to frack, and there's places where it's idiotic to frack.
Yeah, I mean, everybody evolves on their opinions. There's different ways. There is pandering, there's flip-flopping, and there's an evolution. Every politician can have an evolution on their ideas. Many of them have done that. Hence the reason why many Republicans actually ended up voting for the ACA when that got put up, because that was an evolution of a healthcare idea that came out of Mitt Romney's Utah when he was there. That was just an evolution. That wasn't a flip-flop on ideas, and condemning individuals for that is wrong. They just had the idea that they wanted to change. You do have politicians that pander. I don't think she's pandering to, this or that. And I don't think she's truly flip-flopping, because she took up the policy of the administration that she was in. She then had to go out through the actual country to discuss this policy with the individuals throughout the country. And getting more information is what we are all about. Evolving on a policy is fine. Flip-flopping is bad, and there is flip-flopping that happens.
But we haven't heard from Sasha yet. Let's let Sasha have a go.
Yeah.
First of all, Kamala is a quick learner. She's getting from debates to public appearances, and she's getting better and better at it. And what I've seen yesterday, she's becoming actually a master of these rallies and so on. She's doing a fantastic job. So this is one thing which is in her favor, and there are still 2.5 weeks left. So, and she's going to campaign and doing 3, 4, 5 rallies a day. She'll do it to extent of whatever she's capable of doing that. Now, about Trump, somebody earlier in the program said that he's a savior. I'm wondering why Savior was sent as a 6 times bankrupt, twice impeached, several felony accounts. Why is that? Why they wouldn't say in the Savior, just an average person who is not so good, not so bad, at least you can be in pieces. So, and actually that type of person could win elections simply because if you're right, and maybe US is not ready for a black woman president, so they would vote for some kind of a dummy, whoever it was. But the problem is in America is that dummy happened to be Donald Trump, a convicted felon and criminal and the con man. So here's the choice: a black lady and con man, convicted several times and so on. So this is your choice. Let's be practical about it. That's it.
Yeah, no, but Sasha, along those same lines, and Shaquille may want to jump in on this one as well, not just because of his own heritage and everything, but one of the criticism, and I think Steve kind of alluded to it, that's been out there is that, yes, she does primarily identify as an African-American woman and everything, but she does have some Indian background. And I think even Steve yesterday alluded to the fact that she's not been reaching out enough to that community and everything. So I think he alluded to the fact that Vance's wife is going to come to this area, meaning North Carolina, and campaign toward that crowd. So is she missing a target market like when she's going to Wisconsin? Because I know there's a decent population of Asians in India where she is, in California where she is from and everything. So is this a target market that she is missing in terms of reaching out to that community? I don't know the answer, but any thoughts around this and everything? Because she is of both Asian and Jamaican descent. So Asian and
I just looked it up. There are 4.8 million Indian Americans, which is 1.3% of the population. Like, so you can always write an article like, is somebody doing enough to get this person and that demographic? And like, all right, is she going to be harmed by not, specifically going after this 1.3% of the population? I don't know. I mean,
But this 0.3 of the population, you're talking about Indians, and
yeah,
they will vote for her anyway. She doesn't have to do anything because they will just vote for her simply because they would feel that she's one of them. And actually, she's doing yesterday what I noticed. She's very powerful when she's saying, "I'm one of you. I was born in a middle-size family, and I understand how you feel." And so she's very skillful. And I think it's a very recent phenomenon when she became allied with the crowd that she's talking to. She's doing it very powerfully. Trump has nothing of that. I think with his brain, he couldn't even if he does not feel that way. So he could do it just to try to associate himself with his audience. He's just too stupid even to think about it.
No,
So I
to be
don't
fair, hold on a
think-
second. No, to tell me to be fair, because Shaq's been here, he's been in the background, and he hasn't commented yet. We got everybody else. So, Shaquille, any thoughts around this conversation and everything?
Yeah, I think you're all nuts. I seriously do. Like the way that you guys gloss over anything that could be critical of Harris and just focus in on every flaw that Trump could possibly have and then amplify it. And then you've got one of the people with administrative controls taking official positions on behalf of Pod TV that are very, very, by coincidence, similar to the sorts of positions and things that Gimli says. I think you guys are crazy carrying on like that. Now, whose idea was it in the Harris campaign to let Donald Trump have an unfettered stage last night at the Al Smith dinner in New York? Whose idea was that? And her response was a joke. That was one of the most cringiest responses that you could have possibly given. Now, you think that the Catholics that were in that room and the Jewish people that were in that room, how do you think that they feel? She was getting booed at by that crowd in New York. I mean, I don't know what it is that you guys need to see before you guys will go, wow, yeah, like maybe she needed to have done something differently. The whole way through this campaign, whether it be Biden, who clearly had cognitive decline for years, everybody in the world was telling you that, okay? Other world leaders were privately expressing it after meeting with him. No, they're cheap fakes. When Republicans said, at least have the decency to tell us who the candidate will actually be. No, it's a conspiracy theory. He's absolutely fine. You even had hardcore Democrats saying after the debate that he was fine and he was still going to run, which nobody believed. Kamala Harris comes in under dubious circumstances and doesn't think it's a good idea to have a press conference, doesn't think it's a good idea to have an interview immediately afterwards when the whole country's asking for it. I mean, I don't get this idea that everything's fine and rosy over there on the Democrat side. It's really not. Jim, I appreciate that the betting markets often get it wrong, especially with sports games. But historically speaking, from my own personal observations, they are pretty accurate when it comes to political predictions. And one of the reasons for that is because the odds can change over time because you've got so much more time for an election to actually occur. So, you can pick up clues from polls, you can pick up clues from the betting markets, but I appreciate what you said, that that's not going to be the determining factor of the election.
Yeah, and
But
it's not a good trend.
I don't get this. I don't understand why people are sitting there trying to convince themselves, because I don't think you're convincing anybody else, but I think you're trying to convince yourselves that actually she's going to win and everything's rosy. It's really not.
Yeah.
If this was my side, I'd be
stop with the
horrified.
nonsense. Stop with the nonsense. Nobody's trying to convince everything that everything is rosy. and we're not papering over any of the problems. I was clear that I thought Biden was too old. I was clear that I think Trump is too old. I've been consistent with that message throughout. What we're talking about is facts. And so you don't tell me what I think and what I'm trying to do. What I'm saying is facts. He's a convicted felon, 35 convictions. He's filed for bankruptcy 6 times. He was impeached twice. And he's worse now than he was then. He does cognitive decline. They're hiding him. It's clear. He's too old for the job. He won't finish his term. We will have a President Vance.
Well, that's exactly what Republicans were complaining about with Joe Biden, and you guys said there was absolutely nothing to say there.
About Joe
right?
Biden. I was saying it too. Get on board, Jack.
Well, I don't recall you saying that back. I don't recall you saying that back in 2020. And when you tell me to stop with the nonsense,
I said it in 2024.
You tell me to stop with
2016.
You tell me
2024, Shaq. Come on.
Have you finished
just
now?
A couple of quick things.
I don't know. Don't tell me. I paused to allow Jim to finish ranting.
But you're just going to go back and attack him and not move.
No, I'm not going to go back and attack him at all.
I would just want to move the conversation forward real quick. Just to point out, everybody after the 2024 or after the debate said that Joe Biden was, felt that Joe Biden should leave the actual race. It's not up to everybody else to decide. If he leaves, he has to leave. Everybody in every presidential year, the incumbent president, they are the one. That's who actually gets, skates through the primaries. Trump did it in 2020. Obama did it in 2012. They're never really primaried. Joe Biden's cognitive decline or whatever it was or whatever it is the same thing that's happening to Trump, but yet we're not hearing the same thing on that side. In terms of the dinner that you had brought up, how you're saying that you don't know why they gave Trump the full stage. It's very obvious why they gave Trump the full stage. Honestly, she has only been running for
and he blew it.
70 days. So she still has rallies to do. She has a whole bunch of stuff to do. The actual individuals, the Catholics that are within that actual place, the high rollers and everything else, they're not moving. They're actual, as we've talked about, and we've talked about ad nauseum in the polls, everybody's pretty much stuck. Right now, it's a get out the vote push. So her doing rallies is more important than her going to that dinner. It wasn't going to move the needle any which way. So giving Trump the stage, which Trump did actually a decent job for a little bit, but also flubbed a little bit and also insulted people, went down the whole cultural war issues that we talked about earlier. That was a problem. Kamala's circumstances, we have to stop this. Oh, she was done under dubious. No, she actually went through the actual political process, which has actually been there in our history since the start. The betting markets were brought up. The betting markets right now are on Trump. However, even they've talked about how the circumstances are a little bit odd because remember the betting markets and you're right, Shaq, the betting markets are pretty consistent on what they actually get right. But they have gotten it wrong. They got it wrong. They had put Hillary Clinton up high over Trump in 2016 and got it wrong. That was when they got it wrong big time. So right now, the polling markets, which we pointed out ad nauseum, Kamala Harris is leading in the polling markets currently. So I just wanted to point those things out and move the conversation forward. One thing that Sasha said about the Indian community, that he feels that the Indian community will be with her because she's Indian, that's not true. She still has to earn the vote of those individuals. Hence the reason why she said that and has done a whole lot in terms of the black male vote, because she still says she has to earn that vote, which is true. So
I have a recommendation. The cold open on SNL has been featuring all these candidates and plus Biden, and they brought Dana Carvey back after 30 years to do Biden. And he's freaking hilarious as a Biden who is way out of it. And they have Gaffigan as Walls, and just it's good and it's fun and it hits both sides pretty hard.
Yep.
Yeah, Now, can I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. You tell me, Jim, to knock off the nonsense. Kimberly, at the beginning of the show, before I got here, said that Trump's supporters say that, yes, he lies and it's the fault of the victims that listened to him. Really? Because I don't recall them saying any of that. I don't remember anybody on Fox saying, hey, the victims should. So does anyone call Kimberly out? No. But this constant, like, everything that Trump does and everything that his supporters does is absolutely wrong. Now, apparently I've upset a few of you by saying that you were nuts. Apparently I've upset a few of you by saying you were nuts. Well, you know what? I'm sorry if that makes you feel better. I'm sorry. I think the way that I've been treated, I think I'm entitled to come out and say a few things from time to time with how I've been treated, especially the last couple of
We
weeks.
love you. We've had you on the shows many times. Come on.
So-
you're the one that made it personal.
So just as
Oh,
just
no,
to point
Jim.
out-
If you want to go, if you want to go way back,
just to point
Jim,
out, to move the
Jim, if you want to go way
conversation
back
forward,
over
move
the last couple of
conversation
years, we
forward
can
real
do
quick.
that, but let's
Move
not
the
do it on air.
conversation
But no, I
forward
was
real
never the
quick.
one that
Stay off the
started bringing
personal,
making
then
this
move the
personal.
conversation forward.
Why'd you tell me?
Lies.
Let Mark be the host, not you.
The Trump lies that you just pointed out, they do affect people. Trump has been yelling and talking and spreading lies about the hurricane relief. There is a direct connection from the people who went to attack, or the people who are going to attack FEMA, and the man who was arrested for trying to hunt down FEMA in North Carolina. Direct connection between Trump's lies and his words. Springfield, there are bomb threats, school closures, because of a direct connection between Trump's lies and those bomb threats. So when we try and say that these things don't have an effect or don't mean anything, or that we should overlook them because he was joking, they're lies and they're having a direct effect. There was a spike in when he starts yelling out his racist China virus. There was a spike when COVID was going around in the Asian community, or hatred toward the Asian community. There was a spike when he started saying people should use household. We're looking at household products to take care of COVID. There was a spike at poison control. So Trump's lies have an effect on the actual populace. So when this is why, and I apologize that Adam's not here, but Adam does repeatedly say that we shouldn't really take his words into account. We should take his actions. No, his words mean something. And people always, and this is what I said yesterday, people say he says what he means. Well, either he says what he means or we shouldn't listen to him at all. So if we're not going to listen to him at all, then he should not be running.
You don't listen. To
So you can't have it both ways.
So
His words
here we've got this
matter.
situation.
When he says these things, we should listen. When he says there's a purge coming, we should listen. When he says he wants to put these people in jail, we should listen. When he says he's going to revoke the actual legal status of immigrants and mass deport them, or create a mass deportation process for these people, we should listen instead of saying he's just joking.
Shaq, go. Shaq, go.
Yes, it's your turn, Chico.
So I'm saying, I won't read to the audience what the comments are backstage. And everyone seems to be upset with me. And everybody just says, well, I should come out and actually present facts to counter what is really your opinions on things, guys. The other thing that I'm being told that I should talk, okay, Toby, back to you.
No, it's on you, Shaquille.
It's on you. It's on you. I'm going on mute.
The other thing that I'm supposed to do is to talk about how wonderful Donald Trump is. No, I'm not going to do that. I don't need to be here to be Donald Trump's great defender. Okay, I'm calling it how I see it. I think that it's ridiculous for anybody to suggest that I or the entirety of the Indian community should be voting for Kamala Harris because half of her heritage is the same as ours. Firstly, that's not how it works. Okay. Firstly, we've got the caste system in India. We're from different parts of India.
Right.
Okay. There's all sorts of different things that affect Indian culture. Secondly, I've heard this argument before with other Indians in other countries. Are we being serious right now?
Yeah,
India itself has 1.3 billion people or something living there, and there's a couple of billion Indians around the world. Are Indian politics not divided? Of course they are. So what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to have political positions that we take in our lives, but as soon as somebody in America happens to be Indian, we're supposed to forget about all of those and then go with her. That's totally ridiculous.
I agree.
It is the Democrats that have brought race and her gender into this. The
Nonsense.
comparison is not, should we vote for a black woman? Is America ready to vote for a black woman, or would they prefer a con man? That is not what's going on. And the people that are voting for Donald Trump are actually telling you the reasons why they're voting for him. They're telling you about the things that they have a problem with, whether it be crime, whether it be immigration, whether it be their impression of the economy and inflation, etc. They're telling you. And when you come back at them and say, oh, well, it's actually just because she's a black woman, you're insulting them to the point that they are not going to listen to you anymore. The Democrats, if they lose this election, will have done damage that I think will be very difficult to repair. The fact that she has lost support amongst key demographics that have voted for her, voted for Democrats for decades in mass numbers, is really concerning. The
Well,
fact
we
that
haven't
she's
seen
lost
that yet.
support
That's
amongst the
not yet a
union
fact.
is really concerning.
That's not
And
yet
I
a
think
fact.
Democrats need to be aware of that and do something about it.
So just to address a few things.
Let's take that down, by the way. Mark, if you can take that down.
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
want to look at that anymore.
So just to address a few things,
Thank
you brought up facts versus opinions. So yes, that is true. Facts are the light is on. That's a fact. Oh, the light is bright is an opinion. So when we talk about facts and opinions and we show a direct connection, for example, with Trump's words and Springfield and the bomb threats, that's a fact. That's not an opinion.
Yeah.
That is a direct connection based on what happened after Trump said these words. It's a direct fact that poison control spiked after he put out misinformation about what happened, how to treat COVID. These are facts. It's not an opinion. It's actually a direct connection drawn, direct correlation. So that's just a straight fact, not an opinion.
We have not had a female
race brought up-
president yet, and so I think it sends a good message to the rest of the world to have a female president. That
Yes.
doesn't mean I say that we should vote for females. Come on.
Exactly. And so
But I don't. But people said that about Obama, Jim, and the rest of the world really didn't care. That was the thing that I found so fascinating with hearing that.
Real quick, let me finish these things that you tried to
It
address.
was
and I'm
terribly
gonna-
over by the time you finished.
So
Toby.
you brought up race. Race wasn't brought up until Donald Trump went into the National Black Journalists Association, and Trump was the one who tried to question Kamala Harris's race.
He didn't know she
Nobody
was
else was
black.
questioning that. Nobody else is doing that. And
Yeah.
even if you want to go before that, if you look at
That's a
at
fact
the
on there,
actual Republican National Convention, trotted out a bunch of individuals because they were trying to court the black vote. So it happens throughout politics, but who brought it to the forefront? It was Donald Trump, because now there's no question. The question of, well, is she Indian? Is she black? Or blah, 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 blah.
That's right.
That was from Donald Trump. That was one thing that happened. And then loss
Look
of
at all the
support
Republicans that are
demographics.
rallying around Harris now, including
Yeah.
General Milley, who called Trump a fascist.
Why is it? Can you guys explain this to me? Why is it that Jacoby gets to have an opportunity to respond to every point that I've made and other guests have made, but I'm not allowed to do the same thing? I'm told that I'm filibustering the show and dominating the show when I do it. Is there a reason?
Everybody speaks first. One person speaks, Jack speaks. One person speaks, Jack speaks. One person speaks, Jack speaks. We can't have that, Shaq. We got to.
No. So what we can have is Jacoby.
No.
You guys are cool with that. Okay, no, cool. Well, then obviously I don't have any time left there, so it's actually just help Rick.
We should put up a 60-second clock. Everybody gets a minute. After a minute, you're cut off.
Shaquille, actually, Kim ran that. That's the debate that'll be with the candidates or some of the candidates that are not the mainstream candidates and all along those lines. So that'll be coming up on this this coming Monday, as the commercial just said, and our own David Walker will be one of the moderators there. But Shaquille, if you had some other things that you want to say, we still got a minute or two.
No, I've pretty much said everything that I want to say. I'll just respond to one last thing, and it's about the notion that you guys are presenting facts, which clearly I don't agree with. But even if it were true that every single thing that's presented by left-wing media, by the Democrats, etc., is absolutely truthful and is factually correct, it still doesn't change the perception that people have, which is that you're selective about picking facts to amplify that make the Republicans look bad, and any facts that would tend to make the Democrats look bad are ignored. Any facts that would make the Democrats look good are amplified, and the same thing is not done for the Republicans, except for right-leaning media. I'm sure I was still speaking.
Yeah, you were, but you had your minute.
Go ahead. You were saying except for right-leaning media.
Except for right-leaning media that amplifies it. So, I think that you guys have an issue. Now, if you guys don't think you do, okay, no problems. But you know what? When you have a look at the voting patterns around the Western world, this is not unique to the United States. So for you guys to sit there and say that there is no problem and it's just right-wingers that are just going off their nut about this, I don't get it. I don't get it, because you've got to compare something to something.
All along.
Oh, Shaquille, hold on a second. Jim and Shaquille, hold on a second. I gotta ask a question to the panel and everything. Hold on a second.
Well, look at what's just happened in Germany. Look at what's just happened in Germany.
Germany, Italy.
Now, Germany's had. Okay, so Germany's had.
I've been saying that for a year, Shaq. Come
on. Now, Germany's had this party come in. Now they are now the second biggest party in Germany. Right, and what does the media have to say about it? They sit there and they say, "Oh well, look at how far right wing they are." Really? After what we've seen in Belgium with the far lefties in Belgium, with what we've just seen in France, where they changed the electoral rules because they knew they were losing in order to put their socialist friends back in power. Come on now.
You've had your turn. I would like to point out some very interesting news that China has decided not to allow any more children to be sent to other countries for adoption, that they have changed their laws to the limitation of how many children that each family can have. And that's a huge change in laws. I think it's a good change in laws. Maybe, there will be more growth for China, whether you like them or not. I thought it was a humanitarian decision, but they have made this decision, and I think it's a good one to maybe start keeping more babies in their own country and less adoptions out. We are at the top of the hour. Thank you very much for joining us. We will see you Monday. Take care and have a safe weekend. And if you get a chance, continue donating to the hurricane victims.
Wait, today's Friday? Dang.
Yep.